बिल्कुल करेंगे।
ओके सर। सो 7वें अंतर्राष्ट्रीय योग दिवस के उपलक्ष्य में आयोजित इस राष्ट्रीय वेबिनार जो कि
this event, like last year, as an online event. So I'd like to begin by sharing my experience and thoughts and research being done at Delhi, in various hospitals of Delhi, on COVID, using yoga interventions in COVID. Yeah. I hope you can see my slide, right?
जी सर।
I will go with this mode because in Google Meet, the full screen mode will usually switch off. Basically, let me just begin by starting the session by talking about how we use yoga in COVID. So we are doing a multi-centric randomized control trial right now at Rajiv Gandhi Super Specialty Hospital, AIIMS Jajjar NCI, Lady Hardinge Medical College Hospital, AIIMS Delhi, and AIIMS Rishikesh. This study is on using yoga interventions in mild to moderate COVID-19 patients who are hospitalized in these centers, in tertiary care centers. So all of you are aware about COVID. I don't need to give you introduction about this. So we all know the iceberg concept of infection, especially in case of epidemics and pandemics. Here, especially in case of viral infections like COVID, you have a very large number of patients who have mild symptoms or no symptoms at all, and they need to be confined under the home. They are not under the surface. And many of them who are asymptomatic go missing. We can't trace them. We can't find out whether they're asymptomatic or not because they don't have any symptoms and they don't get tested as well. So this is the iceberg concept of infection, wherein the clinical layer of infection is only the tip of the iceberg. These are the patients who end up in hospitalization, require oxygen support, require ventilator or ICU support. So now we know the symptoms of COVID. I won't go into details of this. So these are all the symptoms of COVID, and as the strains are mutated, more and more symptoms such as GI symptoms are started to surface, loss of taste, loss of smell, and more of coagulation disorders are started to surface along with COVID. So it's more not just a pulmonary disease altogether, it is also a systemic disease now. And before we went into talking about doing research on COVID, we wanted to understand the myths about COVID among the population. So we looked at WHO website, CDC website in 2020 April, and found about 15 myths regarding COVID. And what we wanted to look at, what is the perception of the community against COVID? Because during those times, initial days of COVID, during the first wave, people were largely ignorant about COVID. Like they used to, because they used to believe that the temperature is going to kill the virus. They used to soak the vegetables in salt water, so put them under sun for about 2 hours, thinking that it's going to kill the COVID virus. Same thing is to be a similar kind of things were there, like they used to do saline rinse to prevent corona infection. They used to drink alcohol thinking that alcohol is going to kill the virus. You had long lines of queues in Delhi, especially across just in front of the liquor stores, a queue running for almost a kilometer and so I could see there. And many people had this kind of belief that you're drinking alcohol will prevent coronavirus. You are putting sanitizers, you're putting ethanol on your hands. Why don't we use alcohol? Was their logic. Hot baths, taking hot bath prevents coronavirus. Vaccines against Ebola prevents coronavirus. Hand dryers can kill coronavirus. So all these are some of the important myths which were there prevalent in the community during those times. There were 15 of them during April 2020. And as we did a survey across one long year, we found these myths increasing to 44 in number in April 2021. So this is a survey we did on 4,002 respondents, looking at all aspects of occupation. People who had any Android or mobile device were able to log in and do the survey responses using a COVID dashboard, which we had developed for this purpose. And what we saw was the myths were very high. Among all these people who got the myths correctly, all the questions correctly, were only about 40 of them, 49 of them to be precise. And we could see that everybody had some myths or the other. Average myth score of 6.34. And this increased to 7 point something after 1 year of gap. And this is a very significant increase in the myth score after 1 year. And what we also saw was the amount of myth prevalence was from 93% initially to 100% in the middle. And we also did an interesting study where we did Google Analytics on all the ad search for COVID cures. You have cure for coronavirus, you have boosting immunity, immunity enhancers, improving immunity, etc. And we found the number of articles month on month increasing in India region, basically, okay, month on month over the last 1 year. We also saw significantly increase in CAM modalities over the last 1 year and CAM usage among these patients in the last 1 year as well. And we correlated the myths with respect to number of articles on Google Analytics, and we saw a very positive, definitive positive correlation of 0.7 R. And this indicated that patients were being influenced by these things on the digital media or the digital space as well. Okay, so before I go into the aspect of yoga and COVID, we also want to look at these myths can only add to distress of the people, can make them buy certain products which really don't have any proper evidence for cure, and that can also delay the treatment. They can end up in the hospital with a more severe form of COVID because they're not gone and get tested earlier. And it can also lead to them, because they think that they're taking something which is immune boosting, it can also lead to them to lower their guard against infection as well. So these are some of the pitfalls of advertising in the public on boosting immunity, like anything from paints, soaps, detergents, burgers, everything was called big on immunity. And the immunity is a must abused word today as far as COVID is concerned. Now let us look at how does yoga play a role in COVID. So we know very well that yoga helps in reducing psychological distress in patients. It reduces stress in patients. It makes you very, very calm. So does it have a role to play in infections? So this is a landmark study done, published in 1991 by Cohen-Septon and colleagues. Cohen-Septon is known as the father of psychoneuroimmunology, and he's done pioneering work on psychoneuroimmunology, and he's set the stage for the further research into psychoneuroimmunology. So what he did was he gave one population a nasal spray containing coronavirus, not the corona SARS-2 virus, but a different strain of coronavirus, coronavirus 229 it's called, and a respiratory syncytial virus as well. And he saw he measured the stress levels in this population, and he saw the people who had more stress had higher rates of infection, higher rates of clinical codes, and it was a dose-response relationship between the level of stress and the infection rates as well. And he also found in these people who had stress had decreased secretory and salivary IgA levels and increased pro-inflammatory cytokines or mediators. So this is one of the first studies, a landmark study published in New England Journal of Medicine, a reputed journal, to really conclusively tell under laboratory conditions and control conditions that stress can increase propensity for an infection. So what do we see today? This is demography. So we have patient population which has higher levels of NCDs. We have metabolic imbalance, women's PCOS, we have behavioral disorders, cardiovascular disorders, musculoskeletal problems, cancer, autoimmunity, arthritis, etc. So all these NCDs are caused due to three important things: physical inactivity or sedentariness, hypernutrition, and stress levels. So all these three play a very important role because mind influences your behaviors, and this can lead to people succumbing to COVID-19 infection. There's another study which was published in 2018, even before the COVID-19 pandemic came. This is done in influenza endemic season in US, in northern part of US called Wisconsin. And there they gave a group exercise regimen, another group was given a meditation regimen, and third group was left alone. And what they saw was the group which received exercise and meditation had lesser severity of colds or influenza and shorter duration of colds and influenza. So 8 weeks of meditation versus exercise intervention was given to this population. So this is another study which really tells the role of yoga or meditation in interventions. Okay. So what do we need to do in COVID-19? It's very important to understand. So we looked at various aspects of yoga. Improving mucosal immunity is very, very important. Studies have shown that Neti Kriya, Jalaneti especially, increases salivary beta defensins as well as the beta defensins in the mucosal lining of your nostrils. And we also have studies which shows that there's improved viral clearance with faster formation of antibodies if you have a relaxation response and if you improve the lung functions, and especially with respect to exercise. And we also looked at reduced airway resistance is seen in patients with allergy and asthma, especially with respect to release of Ig and absolute eosinophil count mediators, which mediate the allergic and hyperactive inflammation in asthma. And we also have data on how yoga can help in modulating immune responses, how it can reduce inflammatory cytokines, how it can modulate oxidative stress as well. So all these play a very, 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 very vital role in respiratory infection because respiratory health is of paramount in coronavirus. So all of us know that we are all shallow breathers. We don't breathe properly. Our lung capacity is 6 liters per minute, and hardly we even breathe 6 liters per minute. We hardly take in 3 to 4 liters of air. So most of it, the lung health is very, very poor in most of us, and more so in people who are taking up to smoking, alcohol, and who have living in polluted environments and other conditions, okay, and who don't do any exercise. So improving respiratory health is of paramount, especially in cases of COVID-19, because what has been seen today is that patients who had these addictive behaviors, who had poor lung health, are the ones who develop a severe form of COVID. Okay, so how does yoga work? We all know it works on neuroendocrine response, cardiovascular response, nervous system, and musculoskeletal system. It brings a state of homeostasis in all these systems inside the body and corrects the changes which happen with various kinds of diseases. Like, for example, rheumatoid arthritis, you have more of Th1 response, inflammatory cytokines. In asthma, you have more of Th2 response or anti-inflammatory cytokines. The humoral immunity is a problem there in asthma. So it helps in modulating any of these conditions to bring a state of homeostasis, which we call it as samatvam in yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate, we say. Okay. So what kind of yoga? It is very important to improve lung function, to have a relaxation component, bring about a mindfulness practice, relieve stress and anxiety. And what we have seen was to give very short yoga modules, because these people who had acute respiratory illness, they had fever, they had fatigue, they had malaise, and giving a longer form of yoga is only going to do things worse for them because they won't be compliant to this. So we just made 20-minute yoga module, which we started giving in the COVID care hospitals. These patients were completely isolated. They had no relatives attending to them, and they used to feel bored. And it was like kind of engagement for most of these patients in the morning and evening. These are the asanas done to improve respiratory effort: Pajasthasana, Ardha Chakrasana, Sulabha Matsyasana, and Shashankasana. And now mentioned here is Shashankasana because we use this even in ICU as well. Okay. Because it helps in improving the secretions basically. And we use the breathing exercises, especially yogic breathing is found to be very, very useful in case of COVID. And this is one such breathing, 1:1 breathing, which played wonders in improving oxygen saturation in this population. Okay. We also did Kapalbhati in those who didn't have dyspnea, who didn't have cough, because it induces cough and dyspnea. We did Nadi Shodhana and Bhramari Pranayama as well in this population. Okay. And this is the study which we did. This is all areas. This is the objectives of the study. Efficacy of integrated yoga program in reducing severity of ARI, psychological distress, anxiety, stress, and mood changes in COVID-19 positive patients undergoing treatment. And also we wanted to assess the bivariate relationship between the degree of relaxation response and outcome variables. We measured this relaxation response using heart rate variability with a novel sensor technology. So first pilot study is already completed, 86 COVID-19 patients undergoing treatment in each arm. It's a pilot cohort study. And the second one, RCT, is underway right now. Okay, so these are all mild to moderate COVID-19 patients, 18 to 60 years of age, and consent to participate, had high school education. Those with abdominal LFT, RFT, pregnant lactating mothers, immunosuppressive conditions, or oxygen saturation less than 93% were not taken in the study. Okay, so this is the one I had on yoga intervention. Azam did not receive the yoga intervention. Both of them received same COVID care protocols. This is the yoga module done before on the morning and evening every day for the 14 days. Okay, some patients stayed for 7 days, some patients stayed for 10 days, some patients for 14 days. And we also did the Wisconsin Upper Respiratory Symptom Tract survey every day, right from day 0 to day 14. Okay, and we did the time to discharge, time to recovery, and ICU admissions as well. And these were the assessments. We did psychological assessments to look at stress, quality of life, positive, negative effect, and Hamilton Rating Scale for anxiety and depression, and Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index as well. And we also use a mobile app which can deliver the yoga intervention in some patients who couldn't do the yoga in the class. And we use a sensor mat called Dozy for this purpose. And this sensor mat can really measure the quality of sleep in this patient. It just goes under the mattress. We're able to measure the time to awakening, now amount of deep sleep, amount of light sleep, REM sleep, and non-REM sleep as well. And it should tell us how much a patient recovered after sleep. Was he able to feel refreshed after sleep or not? So these are some of the objective parameters which we used on day 1, day 7, and day 14. This is how you can see a patient being recorded. This is a sensor mat here, placed below the patient chest, and it records your heart rate variability, heart rate and respiration, and we can compute heart rate variability and respiratory rate variability as well. So this is the yoga module. You can see patients doing yoga here, and this is a sensor mat which was paired to the patient's mobile. And when they did the practice, it tells you how much stress you have. After practice, it tells you how much relaxed you are. This is how it looks like. It tells you the sleep score. It tells you how much time it took to go to sleep, and it tells you also when you do the yoga practice, before and after yoga practice, how much stress came down after each yoga practice. Also, it will tell you. Okay, so we looked at all this, following this in respiratory rate and heart rate. Not much change there, but what we saw was a better sympathovagal balance in the yoga group compared to controls. So yoga group is in the blue, and we saw a better sympathovagal balance in the yoga as compared to controls. And this is an important function because patients have stress and anxiety, and that causes a problem. And then we did work on heart rate variability. In the same way, we looked at other measures of heart rate variability called SDNN and RMSSD, which is a measure of relaxation response or parasympathetic activity. And we saw a better relaxation response. People are able to relax better in yoga group and as compared to controls. Both these parameters of parasympathetic function were improved in the yoga completely. And what we also saw was interesting. Yoga intervention improved the oxygen saturation by almost 1 basis point, whereas the control group had an oxygen saturation going down by nearly 1 basis point. And what we saw was the reflection of this. Only 4.2% in the yoga group versus 14.7% in the control group needed oxygen therapy. Okay, they deteriorated or needed admission to HDU or needed oxygen therapy. And this is a very important thing because a 10% difference was seen between yoga and controls in mild to moderate positive COVID positive patients. And this is what We saw a significant improvement as well as in sleep as well. So this data is still being analyzed because a very huge number of recordings we have, and we are analyzing this data on sleep. And we did one more single arm study, and within the only 1 week, day 1 and day 7, looked at how does yoga really help in these kind of populations, and we saw that it improves relaxation response and heart rate variability as well. And we looked at different types of yoga pranayama, which is going to be useful in COVID. And what we saw was yogic breathing 1:1 can change the SpO2 levels very easily, and it is significant. Yogic breathing 1:2 doesn't do that. Anulom 1:2 doesn't do that. Shashankasana breathing also improved the SpO2 levels. Chair breathing improved SpO2 levels, and Sulabha Matsyasana also improved the SpO2 levels. So these are some of the important aspects of our finding which we saw. And this is the kind of COVID dashboard you see here. For each patient, we can monitor remotely. Sitting in CCR itself, I can just see the patient which are being put on AIMS Ledger or in AD Harding. You can see the dashboard of what is happening to each of these patients. So we can see the sleep score. You can see how much time he went, what time he went to bed, what time he got up in the morning, total time of sleep. It tells you what is the maximum heart rate, maximum respiration, and tells you how much time he was awake during sleep, how many interference in sleep he had, awakening episodes he had during sleep also it tells you. So this is a very wonderful thing. And throughout the sleep, you can measure your stress levels, and it tells you a very good indicator of quality of sleep in this population. Sorry. So these are some of the trials which are going on. We of late started some work on mucormycosis also. We started a study on using yoga interventions in mucormycosis patients now at SCG Bangalore Institute of Oncology, as well as in AIMS Judge or NCI. So we already have about 80 patients under the cohort right now, and more are going to come as and when we get the cases. So one more important thing which we are also contributing to is to look at COVID-19. How do you find out what could be a better marker of deterioration of patients with COVID-19? Because it's very unpredictable. Some patients deteriorate very fast. Like, they'll be very fine. Oxygen saturation is 90% or 93% now. And suddenly, within a matter of 2-3 hours, you can see they get desaturated and it goes down to almost 83, 82 and other things, right? And these are patients who are at risk for getting a cytokine storm and severe lung disease. And these are the patients who require immediate attention and immediate care in the ICU. And we were doing a study on COVID-19 patients. We looked at 250 sleep recordings, more than 3 hours were analyzed here. Okay. And we also looked at the SpO2 values with these sleep recordings. And totally controls, we had 1,016 sleep recordings, COVID, 935 sleep recordings. And what you see in COVID is the apnea episodes. Okay. This is very, very important. Once you have a lung disorders or lung disease, you tend to also see more of apnea episodes in the breathing pattern of COVID-19 patients. And what we saw was the breath rate variability in COVID-19. You can see here, it is so erratic. Okay, you can see the amount of breath rate variability is so erratic here. Okay, whereas you see control here, the breath rate is almost coherent. Okay, the cycles, thrust and amplitudes are almost coherent, whereas it is not so coherent here in case because of the lung damage. And we are now doing what is called as the breath rate variability. This study has been done in Mahatma Gandhi Medical College at Nagpur, and we are trying to find out cutoff values of breath rate variability and to find out whether they can be a marker for COVID-19 patients to get into ICU. Okay, and this is found to be very, very useful and very, very promising. And it got recently published in not published, sorry, it got accepted in a major conference in US. Okay, by Thoracic Society, US American Thoracic Society. Okay, so this is the first novel thing which is probably from India as well. And this is a Doji, the startup company based out of Bangalore, where I was mentoring them for using this in yoga interventions. They were using it for hospital care as a monitor. We change this and tweak this into using it in relaxation response and using it as a heart rate variability tool for measuring effects of yoga. And we are making a smart yoga mat as well. So these are my thoughts about yoga in COVID, and a lot of work is still going on. And a lot of people are working on different hospitals right now. These COVID cases have come down, so there's a breather right now, which we're using it to collect data and other things and do some more surveys. We started to shift the gear from COVID to mucormycosis, and if we have a third wave, we'll also shift back the gear to COVID-19 to complete that study here. Okay, so the two studies going on in COVID, one is on home isolation patients, and another one is on patients who are in tertiary care centers. Both are almost nearing completion, and we should be out with the results very soon. And the first paper of ours has been accepted in the Annals of National Academy of Sciences. This is the first guideline for using yoga as adjunct to conventional treatment. Myself and Dr. K.K. Deepak of AIIMS have contributed to this particular article. It's the impact factor of 5.9. And another one is also in the pipeline where we're talking about myths about COVID, which we have sent to a very big journal. Let us see, hope for the best with that. And this is all regarding work which we are doing in times of COVID. So thank you for patient hearing. I'll be happy to take in any questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your scientific and crispy presentation. Definitely, it has enlightened our listeners for increasing their knowledge. Now, I invite any queries of the listeners. Any query? Okay, I think there is not any confusion. Personally, I like to thank you for becoming part of us on this special occasion. Now I request you to announce the results of yoga video competition. Please, sir.
Yeah, 1 second, please. It's heartening to see the Department of Swasthya Vritta at National Institute of Ayurveda in Jaipur conducting online yogasana competition for the faculty and students as well. The results are there as for category 1 for students of the Ayush Institute. The first prize goes to Dilip, Veena and Harita. Second prize goes to Miss Monica and Kirti. Third prize goes to Miss Swati, Miss Lalita and Miss Swati and Miss Lalita Prajapati. Okay, this is regarding category 1 for students of Ayush Institute. In category 2 for students of Ayush Institute with family. Okay, so this is yoga with family. You're looking at yoga with family here. First prize goes to Dr. Ayushi with family. Second place goes to Dr. Samida with family. And third prize goes to Dr. Swati with family. And results of category 3 is for faculties of the Ayush Institute. First place goes to Dr. Mahendra Prajapati and Dr. Gulab Pamnani. Second place goes to Dr. Ravi Narayan and Dr. Shri Priya. Third place goes to Dr. Sanjay Agarwal and Dr. Dinesh Prakash Chodkari. This is the results for the category 3. Results for category 4 for faculties of Ayush Institute with family goes like this. First place is Dr. Mahendra Prajapati with family. Second place, Dr. Gulab Pamnani with family. And third place is Dr. Sunita Jain with family. So congratulate all the prize winners for having participated in this event. This competition is not about getting a prize, but it's about participating in spirit of International Day of Yoga. And I thank one and all for this patient hearing. I wish you all the best in your endeavors and stay safe, stay healthy. And what I would like to say as a slogan for this year's IDY is to start a breathe campaign. So breathe well, because we are all shallow breathers. We don't know how to breathe properly. So practice pranayama regularly, breathe well, breathe, mask up, and then you do social distancing and take the jab. Okay, all the best for you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Puneet Chaturvedi for formal vote of thanks.
Namaste, sir. Sir, thank you so much for your wonderful scientific sessions. स्वास्थ्य पीजी डिपार्टमेंट एनआईए की ओर से मैं आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करता हूं कि आपने अपने व्यस्तम समय में से आज के दिवस में आपके इतने कार्यक्रम मीटिंग होने के बावजूद आपने हमारे निवेदन पे हमारे लिए कुछ समय निकाला। इसके साथ साथ मैं धन्यवाद देता हूं हमारे सारे फैकल्टी मेंबर्स का, सारे स्टूडेंट्स का और आईटी टीम का भी, क्योंकि 100 दिन से जो आयुष मंत्रालय के निर्देशानुसार हम कार्यक्रम करा रहे हैं उनके लिए भी पूरी तरह से हमारा विभाग है पूरी तरह से समर्पित रहा, तो उसके लिए भी मैं उन सभी लोगों को धन्यवाद देता हूँ। और सर मैं बताना चाहता हूँ ऑनलाइन जो हमारा योगा कंपटीशन था उसमें हमको 273 से भी ज़्यादा एंट्री प्राप्त हुई, तो उसमें इन सबको चूज करना काफ़ी मुश्किल काम था। लेकिन इसके साथ साथ हमारी जूरी दुर्गावती मैडम, सर्वेश सर, रवि सर, काशी सर, इन सब का भी मैं धन्यवाद देता हूँ कि उन्होंने 5 बजे प्रोग्राम खत्म होने के ऑनलाइन कंपटीशन की लास्ट डेट के बाद भी हाथों हाथ बैठ के इसको रिजल्ट निकालने में हमारी मदद की। थैंक यू सर। आशा है भविष्य में आपसे हमें और मार्गदर्शन मिलता रहेगा।
जरूर, थैंक यू। So